Hello everyone and a massive welcome or welcome back to Fallout Play Build Collect. Yesterday we finally got the massive update on the Fallout television series we've all been waiting for. This came in the form of an exclusive article in Vanity Fair magazine, and the showrunner Jonathan Nolan himself was interviewed, and he shared with us a lot of information about the characters, the factions, and about the overall tone and themology behind the series. Now, if you're not up to date with everything we know so far about the series, I've done a whole series of videos on it. I'll leave a link to that here. I'm going to reference those previous videos. I'm just presuming you've gone back and watched all of my earlier videos. So I've tried to put these pictures in what I think is going to be the order the narrative of the show shows them in. I think the show's going to start off here in the vault, and we now know that this character played by Ella Purnell is called Lucy, and she's the daughter of the Vault Overseer named Hank, played by Kyle MacLachlan. Now, as previously confirmed in some of the earlier videos, we know this is Vault 33 and we know it's based in California somewhere. And on the left hand side you can just about make a dweller there with the 33 number on her back. The vault suits to me seem to be a little bit of a mix of Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 aesthetics. I think they've done a good job on those. Lucy seems to be studying some kind of electronics here. We can see that from what's on her desk and of course what's on the chalkboard behind her. And another thing we can definitely note here is this is a first really good look at Pip-Boy. I think they've done a super job even with the graphics on the little Pip-Boy screen there. It looks really good to me. Something else that drew my attention here was the device they're working on. It seemed familiar for me, I wasn't quite sure why. To me this looked a little bit like the Mila device used by Tinker Tom and the Railroad. Now, I may be looking too deeply into this, but if this rings a bell with you, let me know what you think this design is. Next up we have another image of Lucy. This time she's leaving the vault, and the article mentions she's leaving the vault and her idyllic life to go on a rescue mission. Now there's a little bit of a contradiction in the article that it says that she's going on a rescue mission, but then it also says that there's some strange device, a MacGuffin of some sort that everybody is chasing after in this show. So there's a little bit of a contradiction there, so we'll have to wait and see what this is really all about. A couple of things I picked up here. Again, we can see the Vault 33 on the door behind her. A couple of other things to note. One, she seems to have a backpack on and some kind of spray can, some kind of aerosol perhaps. And I noticed as well what appears to be a split lip. Now again, I don't know if this is relevant, but I wonder if it ties in to the previous image we saw of her leaving the vault when there was a guy laying prone on the floor. It does suggest there's been some kind of conflict in this vault. Overall, I think this is a great image, and for me this really brought back a lot of memories of playing Fallout 3. That first time you leave the vault in Fallout 3 is, for me, one of the greatest moments in gaming. It was that, oh wow type of moment where you step out into the wasteland for the first time and the light hits you, and that atmosphere, that oppressive green sky that hits you in Fallout 3. So I think they've tried to go to recreate something like this here. We know Jonathan Nolan was a big fan of Fallout 3, so I think that's what they've gone for here, and I can see bits of that in this. Well, what about you guys? Did you get the similar Fallout 3 vibe when you saw this picture? Again, let me know. Next up we have another image of Lucy, and again this ties into some previous pictures we'd seen from what seemed to be some kind of junk town set with a container wall around it. We get a great look here of how they used those green screens to put the ruined city in the background of this set. And the article tells us that the name of this junk town is Philly. That seems to be a bit of an odd name for a junk town in California, but there we go, that's what it tells us. Perhaps it's named after the person who founded it. My guess here is that Lucy comes to this town looking for supplies or looking for help on a quest and stumbles across Walton Goggins' character, who we'll get to images of in a second. Once again, I think they've picked a really great image to show us here. I think it's a lovely image. For me, this just shows how much effort they've put into this junk town to make it match the look of the game. Next up, we have what was actually the last picture in the article. I've decided to include this here because it's of Lucy, so it's more information on his character. Notice the vault suit again looks quite loose here. Going back to what I said about this being a mix of perhaps Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 vibes. And here we get a better look at this leather armour, which is very, very small, I might say. Nothing on the shoulders, just elbow pads basically. Of course we get a good look at the Pip-Boy. This one isn't lit up, but of course she's behind the scenes, so I wonder if this is something where they turn this on and it's got a device inside it, or whether it's something they're going to add CG afterwards. Next, let's take a look at this large pistol she's holding. Personally, I'm not familiar with this design. If you know what this design is, if you've seen it before in any of the games, let me know. But this one, I'm speculating that this could be some kind of tranquilizer weapon. This is just a complete guess on my part. Again, let me know what you guys think of this, but I'm looking at the vials on her belt there, and I'm wondering if she can put some kind of chemicals into the pistol to stun animals. They said that this is a very idealistic character, that she's going to be trying to take her morality, that they've lived 200 years underground, still tied to the old world, and she's trying to take that morality out into the wasteland, and that's going to butt heads with the reality of just how harsh life is out there, and that her ideology isn't going to last very long when it comes down to reality. So next up we have this picture of Walter Goggins' character, which we now know is just going to be called the Ghoul. There's no name for the character in this particular time frame, but they also confirmed, as again we speculated in earlier videos and some of us have been saying in the comments, we wondered if they were going to be doing some flashback scenes, much the same as if you've seen programs like Lost or Arrow did a similar thing, where the character will be flashing back to the world before the bombs dropped. This for me was a really interesting point of the article. It's something we'd speculated about. It gives them a chance to show that retro 50s world, that 2077 world. We've seen very little of it in the Fallout games really, other than little videos at the start or the little bit at the start of Fallout 4. We haven't seen much of that world, and I think it's a really interesting world to see how different it was from our world, and to see this character back then. And they said there's going to be a real contrast of seeing the man he was back then and seeing the contrast of the man he's become after spending 200 plus years out in the wasteland. He's one of those people who was seen as they were left for dead, that the rich people went off to the vaults and everybody else was left for dead, left to fend for themselves. And his years have hardened him there. And I think you can see what looks like some kind of a weapon, I think on his back. Maybe a lever action rifle, I'm guessing. I don't know. Again, I may be looking more into that, but that's what I see there. I can't quite see what he's holding in his hand, but he obviously has some shells there across his chest, the famous Western bandolier. And I think with the cowboy hat on, this has got a very Western vibe to it. It's no surprise, of course, because Nolan has just come from making Westworld, and I think he's obviously used some of that influence here. In my last video, I talked about the trailer that we got to see on shaky mobile phone footage only, unfortunately, but this shot is definitely from that trailer. One of the criticisms a lot of you guys had with that one is they thought it looked a bit like the Red Skull from the Captain America films more than a Ghoul. It didn't have that withered look that a Ghoul usually has. Of course, the Ghouls have changed their look over the years. You look at the Fallout 3 Ghouls compared to the Fallout 4, they toned it down a lot for Fallout 4. And I think in 76 it's quite toned down as well. And we see a progression of that again here, where we've still got the striations on the face, but it's a very minor version. Of course, we've still got the missing nose. And of course, we don't have the black eyes that we're used to with the Ghouls. But they mention this in the article. Nolan specifically says that Goggins is a fantastic actor, and they wanted his performance and his emotion not to be too hidden under the prosthetics. And he mentioned as well to some degree that they want the character to be attractive. I don't know if any women out there are going to be, or guys for that matter, are going to be attracted to the Ghoul look. Well, you know, let me know with that. So I disagree a bit with this one. I'm not enormously pleased with the Ghoul look. I admit it had to be toned down. You couldn't have the Fallout 3 looking Ghouls with like literally with the skin falling off their faces. It had to be toned down, but I think the Fallout 4 look was fine. I've seen some people do cosplay recently where somebody was doing a Hancock and it looked just perfect, just like the game. There's no reason you couldn't have done that. I don't think they needed to tone it down. Personally, I just don't buy this explanation at all. I think loads of fantastic actors in dozens of programs over the years under very heavy makeup have given world-class performances. I'll just mention one in the late great Andreas Katsoulis in Babylon 5 playing Jakar. Just incredible performance, so I don't buy this at all. What I suspect has happened here, and again this is just my speculation, but I think this may have been the case that they didn't want Goggins to spend too much time in a makeup chair each day, and he probably didn't want to wear the contact lenses that you would have needed to do for a look that looks something like, let's say, Hancock, for example. But again, this is just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Next up, we have an introduction to the character called Maximus. This article confirms that he's the character on the right here, and he's actually playing a scribe to this knight. Now, this character we've seen previously in the leaked trailer in the previous video. Also, there was some still shots, and we think it's probably this character that was approaching what looks like the Vault-Tec labs. It was confirmed in this article that this is going to be one of the three main characters, and that the paths of the three main characters at some point will cross, as they're all essentially looking for the same thing or the same object. Once again, Nolan mentioned how they're going to try and play into the grey areas of the factions, how they're not going to specifically have good guys and bad guys, how everybody's going to be shades of grey and there's going to be good and bad in everybody. And we've seen that. I like that approach because we've seen that from the Brotherhood in the games. We've had lots of different versions of the Brotherhood depending on the game. Everything from the Elder Lion's aspirational Fallout 3 version of the Brotherhood, which of course causes the split to form, to some of the more hardcore elements like we saw with the Outcasts themselves, where they very, very much look down on everybody that isn't Brotherhood, to something more akin to what we got in Fallout 4, where the two factions have merged back together, and it's kind of a balance between the two, where you can see in Fallout 4 some of the members of the Brotherhood there are very altruistic, like Haylen, who was very forward thinking. And then someone like Proctor Tegan, if you didn't read the background in Fallout 4, Tegan was an outcast who's been brought back in, and he's of course the one who tells you to go and shake down the farms and gives you those quests. And I don't think Fallout 4 really got enough credit for doing that, for showing those different shades of the Brotherhood, for, like I said, Haylen and Tegan and the differences there. And they said in this article that this is going to be the sort of focus of what they're trying to do here, that this scribe character is very much looking out for his own interests, and he's ambitious and he's trying to move up in the order. So I think we're going to see some shady actions from him, but again, time will tell. As far as the aesthetics of this picture, of course, the big thing that everybody's talking about is the assault rifle. I'm one of those strange people who really likes the assault rifle design. I know there's some guys out there, Degenerate Dak, if he ever watches this, he probably won't, but if he does, I know he can't stand this design. I know a lot of you agree with him. I really like it. It's one of those things, I use it a lot in the game, and I use it mostly in power armor. And this is exactly how I use it in game. So I'm very, very pleased with this personally. But again, let me know what you guys think. Do you love or hate the assault rifle? And what do you think of the T60? I think they've done a fantastic job of it. I think it looks great. This was never meant to be a costume worn by a human, of course. It's just a video game. But they've reproduced it almost exactly. One thing I'll be really interested to see is if we see the knight getting in and out of the power armor, if it opens up the same way it does in the game. That was one of the big features of Fallout 4, of course, when they moved the power armor to be in a suit that you actually climb into and climb out of. And it'd be interesting to see if they've been able to do some kind of animation. Perhaps they'll have to do it with CG, or maybe we won't see the guys getting in and out. I think they're probably going to have to address it at some point. What do you guys think? Do you think we'll see it open and the guys getting in and out? Or do you think they'll have to just fudge round it some way? So next up is what for me was a big highlight of these pictures. The Brotherhood airship. And we have to start by addressing the elephant in the room. Lots of people jump to the conclusion that this is the Prydwen from Fallout 4. The article makes it clear that it isn't. And the name they give it now, this is where controversy is going to come in. They call this ship the Casvenon. Now, I'm not sure where the pronunciation is going to be on this. Now, this gets controversial. I don't want to go too deeply into it here. I'm not great with languages, and I certainly can't speak Welsh. I've been contacted before by somebody who does speak Welsh to say that they got the pronunciation of Prydwen wrong. Now, it's pronounced Prydwen in Fallout 4. We're stuck with that now, whether they got it wrong or not. So whether this will be correct, or whether they'll pronounce it in the correct Welsh version, or whether they'll just anglify it as Casvenon, I don't know. It's one of those things we'll just have to wait and see. Until we get a line of dialogue with a character saying the name of the ship, we're not going to know. Again, if you have any thoughts on this, if you're a Welsh speaker and you have thoughts either on how Prydwen should be pronounced, I believe somebody said it should be something like Prydwen or something similar. But again, if you speak Welsh, let us know. Again, Casvenon, if you know how that should be pronounced, let us know. Welsh is a tough language. You'll have to forgive me on this one. But I think it is interesting to note they've stuck with that tradition. Both of these names are connected to Arthurian mythology, which obviously plays into the knightly order nature of the Brotherhood, which I think is great. I think it's a great detail that they added into the games, and I think it's great that they've kept this for the show. Now, at the end of the day, this is an American show. It's an American mainstream show being made by an American company on Amazon. It would have been very easy for them to call this The Independence or some kind of American sounding name. Endeavour, you know, there's so many American ship names you could have used for this. For them to stick with those Arthurian names, I think is really good. Once again, I think it shows they've got a real dedication to trying to keep these things as accurate as they can possibly be to the game world. So controversial names aside, let's just revel in the beauty of the picture of what we're seeing here. I think they've done a fantastic job with the model. Again, it's virtually game accurate in every way as far as I can tell. In fact, obviously it's far more detailed than what the game version is going to be. I'm also curious of how much this matches the game model in dimension. I think the Prydwen internally was too small for me in game. And I personally play with a mod that changes the internals and makes it bigger with showers and toilets and things inside. There are lots of things like that would have missing. So it would be really interesting to see when we see the inside of the airship, what they've done to that and how they've fleshed that out and how that's changed from the game. That's going to be an interesting thing for me to see. Now, one thing I'm a little disappointed about, I can see why they've done it, but I thought this would have been a brilliant thing to have as the end of Season 1, was the arrival of the Brotherhood and the arrival of the Brotherhood airship, much as they appear in Fallout 4. I spoke about this in one of my earliest videos, that I thought it would have been great for the end of the season if the two factions or whoever's playing out in the show is having some kind of battle at the end, and then all of a sudden the airship arrives and drops all the vertibirds and the Brotherhood arrive. I thought that would have been a great cliffhanger to end Season 1 with. So that's where I probably would have put it. Shows these days don't seem to take multiple seasons to build and develop things. They seem like they try to throw everything all at you from episode 1 and try and get your hook right from the start. I can understand why they've done it. The Brotherhood is one of the coolest looking things in the show. It's one of the most iconic things with Fallout. I understand why they wanted them right in there from day one. So I get it, but I just think that would have been, you know, a really incredible moment to have later on in the season. Like I said, probably end of Season 1 as like a big cliffhanger when this airship arrives. And, you know, I think I was looking at it from a view of somebody who doesn't know Fallout, from those people who are going to sit down and watch this show that don't know the lore, don't know the games. That's going to be an incredible moment. They've got no idea who this airship is, or even that these kind of devices even exist in the world. And I'm looking at it as someone who doesn't know Fallout at all. And all of a sudden this giant airship appears with these tilt-wing aircraft, the vertibirds dropping down and the power armor troops maybe getting out right at the end of the season. I think that would have been fantastic for people who are not familiar with Fallout and the lore. Now we go to the last picture, and again it's one from the trailer that we've seen. It's the power armored troops walking through the steam. It's a shot, we only saw it very briefly. It's nice to see it clear and close up here. We can see obviously the T-60 power armor again, looks perfect. One thing I said I thought was a little bit strange was none of them are carrying any kind of weapons, which I thought was a little bit strange. I don't think I've ever seen guys in power armor, 5 of them walking around without weapons. But there's probably reasons for that. We'll see in the show. But again, it looks great. It's a super shot. It was an impressive shot in the trailer, and it's a good picture to add here to end the article. So a big thank you to you guys who've stuck with me all the way through this one. This was a real deep dive, and it's over to you guys now. Let's get into the comments. Let's discuss this. What do you think about what I've said about the story, where the story's going to go? What do you think of the sets, the props, the costumes, where we're going to go with this with the characters, what they've said about the tone? Let's get in the comments, start discussing this. I can't wait to hear what you guys think of this. And of course I have to thank this month's supporters. Whether it's just a one-off or a regular contribution, you can help the channel now over on Patreon and buy me a coffee. The links are in the description, and every penny goes to making new content. And if you're still watching, you'll definitely like some of my other content. Here's my suggestions of what to watch next. Don't forget to smash the like button before you go, and I hope to see you in another video very soon. Thanks for watching.